that straight? Ooh, it's a good start. Is this yellow jumper a bit much against this red wall? Wow, that double chin. Hi everyone, it's Jenny and welcome to my channel. In fact, the beginning of my channel. How exciting. I've got my Alice in Wonderland earrings on specially, I've got my red lipstick, I'm ready to go. So I'm here today to do a slightly belated TBR for the O.W.L.s readathon, which runs throughout the whole of April and is hosted by Book Rose. She's put an incredible amount of effort into this readathon. Not only are there really interesting prompts for each of the 12 subjects, but if you really want to get into it, you can even pick a career from the careers booklet that she's made, which is so beautiful. And then that tells you which O.W.L.s you have to complete so you can achieve that career. So I picked Hogwarts Professor, so I have to complete 7 O.W.L.s. The only compulsory one is Defence Against Dark Arts and whichever subject I want to teach, which is Transfiguration, and then 5 others, but I would like to complete as many of the 12 as possible. So without further ado, let's get into the books. So the first subject is Ancient Runes. For that you have to read a retelling. And I've actually already done this since we're a little way into the month, and I've read Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This has had a lot of hype, I'm sure everyone knows about it. I really wanted to read this, but I wanted to read this one first, so I'm glad I got to this finally. But if I had lots of time this month, I would also really like to get to Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I love this cover. Really shallow comment, but there you go. It's been longlisted for the Women's Prize. I think it's pretty likely to be shortlisted, and I've heard wonderful things about it. Then we have Arithmancy, and that challenges to read a book by multiple authors. So I've just started The Colour in Time, A New History of the World, which is a book of black and white photographs that have been recoloured. It's beautiful and amazing, and even though I think Marina is really the photographer who has done this work of recolouring the photographs, it's still definitely a dialogue between these two people. And then again, if I have more time, I would really like to read Convenience Store Woman, because this has been translated. So it's by Sayaka Murata. Sure I said that terribly wrong. And it's translated by Ginny Tapley Takimori. So sorry to all those Japanese people out there. But it's a book that's really been doing the rounds on booktube, and I've just got to get to it, and it's so short. I'm sure I can fit this one in. Then we have Astronomy, and the prompt for this was a book that has star in the title, and I've got to be honest, I didn't have any books with star in the title, and I couldn't even find anyone that I wanted to read with star in the title. So I've cheated quite a lot, and I've picked The Hate You Give because the protagonist is called Star. Really tepid link, I know, but I finally read this earlier this month and I loved it, and it made me get to it, so I have no apologies for it not really fitting the prompt. There you go. Then we have Care of Magical Creatures, and the prompt for this was that it had to be a book that had a land animal on the cover, and I thought I found this so easy. But it turns out most of the animals on the front covers I have are birds, so they don't count, or sea animals. So I finally found one, and it's a children's book, but there we are. So it's The Amazing Story of Adolphus Tits by Michael Pergo. I used to read him a lot when I was young, and this will kind of be quite nostalgic for me, and again it's short, really easy read. Then we have what for me is probably the easiest prompt, which is for Charms, which is to read an adult book. So I picked The Sellout because it's quite an adult themed book, I think, because there's lots about racism in here, and again it's a book that since it won the Man Booker 3 years ago now, I just need to read it. But I'm sure that even if I don't read this one, I'll definitely read another adult book that will fit this prompt. Then we're moving on to Defence Against the Dark Arts, so I have to do this one. And this has to be a book that begins with R, and I was surprised how I only have 2 books beginning with R. And one of them is a book I just feel like I should read, and that is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I've got to be honest, I'm not exactly pumped to read this book. I've read another novel of his at university called Roxana, and I found it pretty dull. But it's quite an important book, I think, in how it's influenced literature in general. So maybe I'll listen to an audiobook, and that'll get me through it. Then it's Divination, and the prompt for that is that you have to read a book set in the future. So I was surprised that, as someone who likes dystopian fiction, I also didn't have very many futuristic books that I hadn't read before. So I picked The Power by Naomi Alderman. It's a book that, again, it won a Women's Prize in 2016, I think, so I just need to get to it. And I heard mixed things about it, so I'm hoping I'll come up with a positive review. Then we have Herbology, which I'm very excited about because the prompt is to read a book with plant on the cover, and I've got the best book, which is Leaves Grass by Walt Whitman. Wow, that is hard to say. Say that 5 times fast. But this is poetry, so there'll be a nice break from all my other books in my TBR. And I'm excited to finally read this because, again, it's quoted quite a lot at the beginning of books, or it's an epigraph or something, and I just haven't read it. So I'm going to educate myself poetically this month. Yes, that sounds intelligent, Jenny. Then we have History of Magic, which has to be a book that was published more than 10 years ago, which is pretty easy for me. I read quite a few classics. But I picked The Enchanted April because it's April, so go figure. Also, I just wanted to buy this book. Isn't it beautiful? And it sounds lovely. I've read one book by her before. By Elizabeth von Arnim. I should have said that earlier. I read Elizabeth's German Garden. I think that's what it was called. Last summer, and I loved it. So I'm really going to this with very high hopes. Can't wait. Then we have Muggle Sellers, which has to be a contemporary novel. But I picked Lanny by Max Porter, partly because I just want to read it, and if it's not contemporary, I don't even care. Also, take a second. How nice are those end papers? Oh! But I've already started, so I'm only 30 or so pages in, but I'm already loving it, so this will definitely be an owl that I will complete. Then we have Potions, which has to be a sequel, and I'll be honest, I really struggled with this one because I don't really do series. And then I realised I have the second Sherlock Holmes novel, The Sign of Four by Arthur Conan Doyle. I mean, you all know you're a Sherlock Holmes, but just in case you forgot. The thing is, I haven't read the first one, which leads me on to the final subject, which is Transfiguration, where you have to read a book with either a red cover or sprayed edges. And guess what? A Sterling Scarlet has a red cover, so I'm going to read this one first, and then I can complete Potions, because otherwise I don't think I have any other sequels on my shelves that I could read. I study Victorian literature, and I have for quite a few years now, so I cannot believe I've never read Sherlock Holmes or any Arthur Conan Doyle for that matter before. So I'm going to start at the very beginning, because it's a very good place to start. And there we are, that is my O.W.L.s TBR. I've already read 2 of these books, so I'm not doing too badly. I'm hoping I can complete all 12, but as long as I get my 7 hours so I can progress into my to become a professor in Transfiguration at Hogwarts, I'll be happy. Let me know if you're joining in with the readathon and what books you're reading for the prompts. I'd love to hear, or if you've read any of these books, tell me what you thought about them. I'd love to hear. I hope you have a happy reading month, and I'll see you soon for more bookish shenanigans. Bye!